Retirement dreams delayed. 40% of pre-retirees have altered or canceled their retirement. Is your retirement well-funded? Will it last? And one big, beautiful bill. All that and more on today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth, hosted by Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle, Elevated Financial Management. Check out the website. It is a resource, EFMNW.com. All letters, EFMNW.com. Links to the TV show. Our radio shows are in podcast form. Really good information on retirement. Between Mark and Casey, over 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients do exactly that, get ready for their retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. It's my pleasure to go back and forth each and every week. And what we do on this show is whatever's happening, whatever's the hottest topic, what the latest articles on retirement, we talk about it here on Elevated Financial Management. But we also give you an opportunity to get on the calendar. And again, these are complimentary appointments. You'll meet with Mark, Casey, and the team and see how you're doing with your retirement planning. And a lot of you haven't started. A lot of you need a second opinion, so stay tuned. We'll open those up. And as I always do, before we jump in on our first article, our first topic, guys, how was the week? And it looks like we have a new face in the studio.
We do. Yeah, the week has been great. Nice weather. We'll get into the Mariners here in a second, but but yeah, we've got Steve here in the office, which we're really excited about. Steve is joining us as a new advisor. He is a fiduciary, of course, right? We're a fiduciary firm, and so that's a really important piece to the puzzle for Mark and myself and the rest of the team here. And I won't give too much of a long-winded intro, but we're really happy to have you, Steve. Excited to have you here in the office.
Thank you, Casey. Yeah, really excited to join the team. It's an exciting time for Elevated Financial Management, and I'm really happy to be here with the team. You may hear I have an accent.
So I hadn't noticed.
Well, just to clear that up, I am from England, so yeah.
Not Australia. Come on
Australia.
now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So no, we're really excited to have you, Steve. If anything, the accent just that really helps too, doesn't it? Yeah.
Elevates.
That's right. It elevates the whole thing. A much higher class experience now. That
I don't know. I feel smarter just listening right now.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, you're really rubbing off on us. Yeah, that's nice.
We did have something kind of cool happen last week. We may talk a little bit more about this here in the show, but we actually had our first Olympic gold medalist come into our office. He was part of the 1976 gold medal winning boxing team. He won a gold medal. He played. That was the year in Montreal that had Sugar Ray Leonard. And also the Spinks brothers, Michael and Leon. So, yeah, to have him come in and share his story, and he's becoming a client, it was really, really cool to sit and talk with somebody. I know I'd never talked with anybody that won a gold medal, so that was pretty exciting last week.
Really elevated things here in the office, you might say. Him and Steve both, so there we go.
I was going to say, and now we know, Mark, don't pick a fight with that new client.
No.
That wouldn't go well.
I did buy some boxing gloves over the weekend, so we'll see how it goes when he comes back in.
Yeah.
Don't ask him for tips. Don't ask him for tips. Casey, what are you doing? Buying boxing gloves? What are you talking about?
He is pretty cool in that he also helps teens that have maybe struggled a little bit, maybe got a little bit of trouble, but he's giving back. And nice. He was a really humble, both him and his wife, very, very nice people, just deep down. They're good people. That's what I would say about that. And we love having clients that are like that.
Yeah, we do, and it really comes down to, I think, one of the things that we really appreciate about them as a couple is they're both looking to give back to the community and just trying to do the right thing for the people around them. I think that really strikes home for us here at Elevated because that's our goal, right? Our goal is very much aligned with that. We just want to do our best to help the folks that we have the opportunity to help. And maybe this is a good time to say thank you. We do this every once in a while. We want to say thanks to the folks that listen to the show, that watch our TV show, that come to the college classes that we teach, the clients that we get to work with. it really is a privilege to play the little part that we get to play, and to be able to help people and make an impact in their lives. It's really rewarding for us, but it's also really, really exciting to see what some of these folks have been able to do that they weren't sure if they could, or really just had doubts if they could, right? And again, it comes back to having a plan. It comes back to having that education to know what the correct step is. And I think that really kind of ties us in well with our first article, right? Because we see a lot of people delaying retirement, or at least thinking that they need to, right? And maybe I will say, just kind of as a quick summary before we get into the details of the article, I think a lot of folks are feeling that they have to delay retirement because they don't have a plan, right? Which is why we're always coming back to having a plan, because the plan is your ticket to retirement, right? That's your license to go ahead and pull the trigger and make it happen. And so this article, Retirement Dreams Delayed, Altered, or Canceled for 40% of Retirees, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a massive number of people that are putting off their dreams, you could say, and really not being able to fulfill what they've been waiting to do.
Well, we've said this on many shows. You don't know what you don't know, and I think there's so many people out there that have portfolios, and they may feel like they're in this category where they're either going to have to delay, alter, or maybe even cancel their retirement, but they don't know. They don't know what's in the portfolio. They don't know how it can help them in retirement. So I'm fantastic that this is our leadoff article because the landscape, I think people are unsure. The market is the market. We're going to end up talking about the big, beautiful bill here on the program today as well. So there's a lot of unknowns out there, and that makes people nervous.
Yeah, in fact, I love one of the bullet points. It's not your grandfather's retirement happening right now. And the bulk of the reason for that is simply because pensions for most people have gone away. And because of that, people are concerned about what they're going to do. Where's their income going to come from? And there was 4 really good bullet points. I'll take the first 2. Maybe Casey can touch on the second 2. But, for decades now, the 4% drawdown rule has been kind of part of modern portfolio theory. And it said right here, a high percentage of these retirees, they're saying they're throwing that right out the window, right? Because, and some of the smartest minds in retirement planning, Moshe Milewski, Dr. Wade Pfau, all believe that 4% could be too high. Some are pushing 3%. They want it down to 3, possibly 2.8. And if that's the case, you can imagine if you draw down too much in the market and you're taking money out of the market at the same time, 4% could end up being, way too high. So again, that's something that we have to think about. And then we call it the age of 100 rule. A good rule of thumb has been, if I'm working with a 70-year-old, take 70 off of 100, leave 30. That client may not want more than 30% of that portfolio at risk or in equities. Well, there's a lot of belief today that rule is outdated. Even though there is some truth, we need to change what we do as we get closer to retirement. Right? We've got to go more into preservation mode than growth mode. So some of these changes are happening, and they're important to put our minds around, right? Because if we don't do this the right way, we can end up getting hurt in retirement, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just to go back to what you said, Mark, when it comes down to it, not having a pension does drastically alter what is going to set you up for success in retirement. You think about, we talk about this a lot, right? But you think about your parents or grandparents who have pensions as they moved into retirement. Their safe withdrawal rate, or like the 4% rule as you were talking about, that didn't really affect them too much, right? Because majority of their income was taken care of from a pension and Social Security. And so ultimately, it didn't really matter too much how much they took out of their accounts, because probably 90% of their income was already established, and it was going to be guaranteed for the rest of their life. And so when that disappears, that really starts to change things. So the other 2 things on this bullet point list that Mark was discussing, the magic number. So oftentimes we hear people say, well, I need about $1 million, right? If I have $1 million, I'll be good. That's my kind of target for retirement. And you know what? For some people, that is enough. For some people, it's more than enough. And for some people, it's drastically too little. It really depends on how much you want to spend, right? That's what this really boils down to. And it depends on if you have a pension and what your Social Security is going to look like and all those things. And so we see that is changing, and a lot of people are moving away from that goal. And then on top of that, retiring at 65, that's always been kind of the marker in people's minds, right? 65 is my retirement age. We see a lot of people pushing that back, even if they're just doing a hybrid retirement, but still something that needs to be addressed because people are living longer, market volatility is higher, macroeconomics, whatever it is that we want to boil it down to, there's probably 4 or 5 things on that list that do have potentially a negative impact on a retirement if we don't have a plan. And so again, this is the same thing that we bring up each week about having a plan in retirement. And so I'll open this up now. I think, Morgan, the phone lines are open. So for those that are listening, this is your opportunity to get a written financial plan put together by our team of fiduciaries. We will sit down and look at how to create income for you. What the best way is to maximize your Social Security. Is there something that can be done to lessen taxes in retirement? What can you do, and how can we help you to make sure that you don't have to delay or alter your retirement and ultimately get to live that retirement that you've been planning on? We'll talk about long-term care, health care, Medicare, all these things, and there's some other items, but this is a completely complimentary analysis, a plan written just for you, custom tailored to what you're looking for in retirement. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call now.
Again, we have 10 appointments available. Call this number, 866-668-3625. As Casey just mentioned, this is complimentary. You're leaving the checkbook at home. Again, there's no obligation. 866-668-3625. See if you're on track for your retirement. 866-668-3625 will get you in touch with Elevated Financial Management. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, here's the big question. Is a well-funded, restful retirement possible? We're trying to answer it next. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins, 42 combined years experience in retirement planning business, helping their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. You can find them right here in Seattle, Elevated Financial Management. The website, it is a resource, efmnw.com, all letters, efmnw.com. Again, links to the podcast form of our radio show, links to the TV show. You can find it all at efmnw.com. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth with the advisors each and every week. And here on this show, it's whatever is the hot topic. What's cutting edge for retirement planning? We talk about it. And this next article you found from Lewis Walker, is a well-funded, restful retirement possible? Guys, obviously, this is a question a lot of people want the answer to.
Yeah, and this is something that we need to have conversations with our family. Planners need to be taking this very, very seriously, because right now, if you don't discuss how you're going to fund, possibly having to find a place for our dearest loved ones, mom and dad, could be siblings, but the bottom line is you're going to be shocked at what the cost is right now, and then on top of that, the scarcity of options that are going to be there for you to be able to take advantage of. I live next to a consultant in the South End here, and I had a conversation with her. She consults for about 20 what we call family homes here in Washington, and it is staggering. When she told me the number of close to $25,000 per person in their facilities, I was completely flabbergasted. I mean, I thought 15,000 was going to be bad, or is bad, right? That number was mind-blowing. And so if we don't have a plan, and we've not discussed this, because let's be honest, a lot of our listeners are thinking this, we tend to always think that this kind of thing, these type of things happen to anybody else but us. It's always somebody else, right? It's never going to be me until it happens. And then you're in crisis mode, and you're trying to find a facility, which is exactly what happened with my grandfather on my dad's side. He got Alzheimer's, went into the facility at close to probably almost 92 years old, 91 and a half. And he spent the next 6.5, almost 7 years in that facility. And it was devastating to what happened to them financially. They went through all of their liquid assets. So this is something you don't want to play around with.
Guys,
Go ahead.
I was just going to
Yeah.
jump in and say, we got into our first article just talking about, retirement dreams being delayed. But one of the things that was changing was the magic number. And I think so many people get so tied up in what their magic number is. That's all they're fixated on when it comes to planning. And what Mark is talking about and what you guys are chewing on in this segment is there's so much more that goes into the well-rounded plan.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's what makes it a holistic plan, right? And I appreciate you saying that, Morgan, because I think sometimes, we get used to using that word holistic and just kind of assuming that everybody understands really what we're referring to. But I think it's good that maybe we articulate what that difference is, because that long-term care piece is a big deal. You can have all the income in the world, and that's great. But what sometimes happens is people think, well, if I do have a long-term care need, I will shift the income that I've got coming in to pay for my long-term care. And so you feel like you're covered. But if you're married, what does that do to your spouse? Because the cost of living for your spouse doesn't just disappear. It doesn't drop by 50% because you're in a long-term care facility. Whatever it costs for them to be in the house that they're in, or whatever it is where they're living, that price has stayed the same. Their cost of food maybe has gone down a bit. Their travel might actually go up if they're coming to see you in a care facility. So the reality is it's not like you just end up having less need. You have more need, right? And so we have to make sure that we're accounting for that properly. While you were looking at that, or while you were talking about that, Mark, I thought this was really interesting. So you said it was $25,000 a month, right, in one of those facilities. So 4 months, right, a third of a year, 4 months is $100,000, yeah? The average income, the median income in Washington is $95,000 a year, okay? So that means that 4 months of care is just a little bit more than the average annual income in Washington state, right?
It's staggering.
It is, right? And now we have a lot of clients that have much more income than that. But the point still being that it is a huge number, and that's for 4 months, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, if you have even a 2-year stay and that facility is costing, let's say $10,000 a month, just for easy math, that's $250,000 over 2 years, right? And that's being pretty conservative with the estimate. So what are we doing? Is your plan, I think this is maybe the takeaway for our listeners, that you can think about your plan. When you think about your plan, does it account for a potential need of long-term care? Have you at least had the conversation? And you know what? If you can't qualify for long-term care insurance, or that doesn't work for you, there's other things that can be discussed. But have you at least had the conversation?
In fact, there's a paragraph that I just want to read. I love what they said in these couple of sentences. Regardless of how much your clients save for retirement, aging clients and their alpha children. What is an alpha child? They're the ones that are going to step in and have to take that role on, right, to assist mom or dad. They need help coping with the stress, anxiety that are going to accompany planning or arranging for long-term care and other challenges related to aging. See, and again, what happens so much of the time is these events happen and you haven't thought about it, you haven't planned for it. Now you're in crisis mode and you begin to make decisions, right, based on emotion instead of having a well thought out plan. And it can be unbelievably bad and stressful and cause problems. And for those that want to take that position of being a caregiver for their parents, I commend you big time. But sometimes we don't think about all that is involved when it comes to planning and taking care of our parents, let alone we could still have children that we're needing to help. And they're going through their life. So this can be so stressful. We highly recommend that you talk to somebody that knows a little bit about this.
Right. And that medical care, we all understand prices have gone up just in general, right? Inflation in general. But medical moves different from standards like CPI inflation, right? When you look at inflation in a basket of goods of what things cost you at the grocery store, medical is worse. And it's only, from our perspective, going to get worse because at the end of the day, that's a very labor-intensive thing, right? Long-term care, healthcare in a facility, things like that. It's very labor-intensive. And to be perfectly frank, it's probably not the funnest job around, right? And so that workforce is getting smaller because less and less people want to do it. And so that means they're going to have to start upping the wages to get more and more people to do it. And what does that mean? Well, that means it costs more to be in that facility, right? And if we're talking about an average cost of somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000, or as far up as $25,000, we have clients that have a parent that's in a care facility in, it's either North or South Dakota, and it's $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
And it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, right? And so it's not like it's in some big metropolitan area like downtown Bellevue or something, right? This is out in the middle of nowhere. And so if it costs that much out in the middle of nowhere, what does it cost around here, right? That's the reality. And so how do you make sure that that's accounted for and that it's not going to blow up the rest of your retirement?
I mean, think about this. We talk about this all the time. We put things off. We put it on the back burner. It's not going to happen to me. Guess what? Time happens. We do age. You'd rather be proactive than reactive, especially in this department.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Morgan, because that's exactly what happens. I've seen it the first 14, 15 years of my career. All I did was Medicare and long-term care planning. So it's a pretty good subject for me to try and talk with my clients and friends about, because the reality is we don't like talking about aging. We don't like to talk about dying. You know, it's just something that most humans don't want to deal with. But as Casey mentioned, if there's going to be something going to blow up your plan, it's going to be that. And that's why we take this very, very seriously. You've got to add that into your planning, what we all have to do. So if you're listening right now, maybe you have thought about, you know, what we're talking about, long-term care needs. Maybe you're worried about what to do. What about your income? What are you going to do making sure that your income is guaranteed? We have a team of certified financial planners that we can work with that will help us put together a plan for you. We also know that these strategies work best if you've saved at least $250,000 or more. Maybe you're retiring from Boeing, but we want you to know you're going to keep your checkbook at home. All we're going to do is have a conversation. So please pick up the phone, give us a call. Let us talk with you and help you put together a plan that can make your retirement very, very successful.
I mean, this is your opportunity. We've got the 10 appointments. And again, as Mark just mentioned, there's no cost to this. There's no obligation, meaning that if you come in for the appointment, you're not agreeing to become a client. They're not agreeing to take you as a client. This is a great way to test drive Elevated Financial Management, see if it's a good fit for you. But there are many of you out there that haven't started planning. This is perfect. And just as many are halfway down the path but frustrated because you're not being communicated with, your appointments are getting bumped around. It's okay to get a second opinion. Call the number. Grab one of our 10 appointments, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan. You're going to know where you sit when it comes to retirement, and are you ready? 866-668-3625. Call the number now. Grab one of our 10 appointments. 866-668-3625. When we return, right here on Elevate Your Wealth, the one big, beautiful bill, we are going to dive in, and it is a deep pool, folks. Stay tuned. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Our hosts are Casey Elkins and Mark Stimpson. You can find them there, and they've got 42 plus years combined experience in the planning business, getting their clients ready for retirement. And again, it's all about the plan and going from, working and earning and saving to retirement and enjoying. Have that plan. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth with the advisors. It's a growing team at Elevated Financial Management. Exciting stuff out there in Seattle. We get to the articles, and these are the latest. These are the hottest. These are the ones that people are clicking on and talking about when it comes to retirement. And hello, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And we have a complete guide. Casey, obviously, this is what everybody's talking about.
It really is, right? And you know what? Taxes are constantly talked about in the first place, but then you've got the big, beautiful bill that there's a lot of tax things going on, deductions, and the TCJA from 2017 is now in permanent effect, right? That was going to sunset at the end of this year, and we'll get into those details, but maybe I'll just caveat it to start this way. I think that a lot of people view taxes as like the big boogeyman in the closet, right? And we've talked about this before, but that's the reality. And I'll say this, trust me, I don't want you to pay any more taxes than you have to. I don't want to pay any more taxes than I have to. We look to try and lessen taxes as much as possible. We do not have tools to just eliminate your taxes. Let's get that out there, right? That's not a thing. That's called tax evasion, and we don't do that. That's different.
Not
from
legal.
tax
We'll
planning.
stay away from that.
Exactly. Yep. Let's stay away from that. But we also want to help people to kind of open that closet door a little bit and see that maybe the taxes aren't as bad as you thought they were going to be, right? And a lot of that is dependent on how you've saved and what your income's going to look like. And, you know, there's a lot of different pieces to it. But that is where the plan comes in. That is what makes this all that much more doable, is when you understand what that impact is going to be for you. So this big, beautiful bill, there's a lot of discussion surrounding it, and rightfully so. This is kind of the first of its kind in reality when you look at all these different things. I mentioned that the lower tax brackets from the Tax Cut and Job Act, which we referred to as TCJA from 2017, those are now in permanent effect.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that is a really big deal, right? Because those are lower tax brackets. So that means that we're kind of staying where we're at least for the foreseeable future. Right now, potentially that could change in like 3.5 years when a new president comes in and does whatever they'd like to do. But that is nice, and there is some higher standard deductions as well. So there's a lot of things to consider.
What I was going to say is, with that extension, we've been talking about right up until the big, beautiful bill. It would be a really good time while the taxes, the current situation is still in place, to look at Roth conversions. Mm-hmm. Now we've got an extended window. Mm-hmm. Now you can procrastinate, or you can start talking about conversions right now because you got a little more time.
Yeah, and one of the things we'll say about that too, we're fortunate to have a CPA in our office, which is nice. A lot of firms, they won't touch tax questions. We believe that's a disservice to people. They need tax help. They need tax planning. And if your firm isn't doing that, you might want to think about possibly talking with another firm about that. The one thing that we realize, taxes are taxes. And we struggle sometimes with clients that, I don't want to pay any tax. I got to worry about IRMA. And we know IRMA is related to the Medicare tax, income related, amount, regular monthly amounts, right? And so when you have that, all I know is if a person is dealing with IRMA, they are making money. Now, their premium for Medicare goes up, and that's why you need to have software that addresses the IRMA tax, because a lot of the software doesn't do that, right? And so it's the same way with Roth conversions. It isn't necessarily great that everybody converts their Roth, right? And we know that. We've got some consultants that we trust a lot, and one of the big consultants feels that close to 70% of those that think Roth conversion is going to be good for them, he believes that's not going to be the case. So again, we want to know what we're talking about when it comes to Roth conversions, the IRMA tax. One of the good things, everybody was kind of worried about the federal tax exclusion, that has been right at about $24 million between a couple. It's now going to $15 million per person. So a husband and wife can move $30 million on now with no federal estate taxes. So a lot of people don't have to worry about that, right? But for higher net worth individuals, that's a big deal, because they had talked about possibly reducing that all the way back to $1 million, like it was a long time ago. So again, there's some really cool things that have happened with this bill that will benefit a lot of taxpayers. It is a little complicated, and you need to be working with someone that really understands this new bill.
So since you were talking about Roth conversion, which ultimately is about lowering taxes, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And in reality, what we're doing is we're choosing to pay on our investments now at today's current rates, right? With the expectation that that will save us in the future. So we're kind of incurring pain right now so that we can save ourselves a bigger pain in the future, right? And that's that we talk about the pain of regret versus the pain of discipline. That's the pain of discipline, right? Is to pay it now. But the question is it the right thing in your specific situation? Because it gets a lot of attention. It's talked about a lot, sure, and it sounds really good, but it doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody, right? And so that's partly why we've created this tool, taxbillseattle.com, right? And this is something that really can give you some insight and is a nice way for you to determine whether or not a Roth conversion or other tax planning methods may make sense for you. So again, that's taxbillseattle.com. That's a no-cost calculator that we've got available to you. And it'll give you a chance, again, to see, does it make sense in your circumstance? It'll give you a before and an after. It'll show you the path that you're on, and if you were to make some adjustments, it'll show you the path that you could be on, and then you can compare the difference between the two tax numbers to determine if it makes sense for you. I'll just throw this out there. While it's a very valuable tool, it's generic, right? It's not specific to your overall retirement plan. It may be specific to your age and to your investment accounts and things like that, but it does still not take the place of a true retirement plan that accounts for all the parts and pieces that need to be considered. Now, there's a couple other things in here. The SALT cap increases. So SALT is state and local tax. That increases to $40,000, but that has a time limit. So that's from 2025 to 2029. So it's almost kind of similar to the TCJA, where the TCJA had a sunset. So this has a sunset. Will it be extended? Potentially. And then there's some other things here, right? Maybe a little bit smaller, but worth mentioning. The green energy credits will phase out, right? So not as much drive towards getting an electric vehicle, right? Not as much benefit there. But you can now deduct automobile loan interest, which is pretty interesting. There's some caveats to that, right? It's got to be an American-made vehicle. It has to be purchased, I think, in 2025 and forward. It can't have been purchased last year in 2024. And so what they're really trying to do with that is just try and drive the local U.S. economy by encouraging U.S. purchased vehicles or U.S. bought vehicles. I should say U.S.-made vehicles, sorry. But there's a number of things in here worth considering. And you know what? I think a lot of them are actually positives for a lot of the folks that we work with, right? It's hard to say that they would all be positives, but there are a number of positives here, and it may increase the trajectory of your retirement if you do it the right way.
In fact, there's a one-time $1,000 federal contribution to baby savings accounts for children that are born between 25 and 28. So that's kind of a neat way for parents to be able to start funding their children's future education. So that's something to keep in mind. So again, there's some really cool things that have happened. We just highly recommend working with a firm that deals with taxes and can help you figure out all. There's still small business deduction rates, 20% there. So there's some things that you need to understand because they are a little complicated. The average person and probably average listener doesn't really know what we're talking about. But again, we can help you figure that out and help you put together a nice tax plan.
Well, you're banging the drum for retirement planning. We talk about it each and every week, but the importance of having that sub-plan in there that just deals with your taxes as you move to and through retirement, so very, very important. And, of course, this big, beautiful bill that has passed, there's a lot that's in it and how it all plays out for you. Make sure you have a plan for that. Now, the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management is right now. We've got 10 appointments. Case, what's up?
Yeah, so this is an opportunity for you to get a written financial plan that's custom tailored to your individual circumstance. And we think that is really what it takes to be successful in retirement. A plan that's not cookie cutter, that is not just another run-of-the-mill, here's how much you can spend, but rather is how can you maximize your spending? How can you lessen your taxes in retirement? What can you do to optimize your Social Security? What can you do in terms of Medicare? We have an in-house Medicare specialist that will walk you through the 4 parts to Medicare and help you pick Med Advantage or Med Supplemental. We'll also discuss long-term care to make sure that we're covered for that concern. And then finally, legacy and estate planning. We need to make sure that if something does happen to you, that everything passes to that next generation exactly as you want it to. So all of these pieces are what makes up a comprehensive retirement plan, and that's exactly what you get. It's no obligation, completely complimentary. We're here to help. Leave your checkbook at home. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone and give us a call now.
10 appointments. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call this number now. Secure one of our spots, 866-668-3625. Again, you're leaving the checkbook at home. You're not obligated to become a client. Get to know Mark, Casey, the entire team. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan, and it's no cost. Easy peasy. Call now, 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, it's time for scenarios. We've scoured the country. We've gathered a handful. We'll throw them at the fellas, see what they come up with. That's next. Back on Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. That's where you can find our hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. 42-plus years combined experience between these two in the retirement planning business, helping their clients get ready for that big day and beyond. Again, certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure, as always, to jump on and talk retirement. Sometimes play referee between Mark and Casey. Never really that feisty, but occasionally a few digs here and there. It's always fun. All right, so scenarios. These happen all over the place. But remember, when you're listening, you may hear a scenario that's kind of what you're going through. It's not exactly what you're going through. So as I always say, take these with a grain of salt. Let's see how the guys would handle it. If you've got any questions about your own scenario, grab one of our complimentary appointments when we make them available and, take care of business. Have that conversation. All right, Mark, first up, here we go. They own a rental property that brings in $1,200 a month, but also requires ongoing repairs and management headaches. They're debating selling it for a simpler income plan in retirement. How should someone weigh the pros and cons of keeping rental real estate versus, say, cashing out for a more hands-off investment?
Yeah, this is interesting because we do have clients that are real estate owners, right? And we'd love to have these conversations. In fact, we have a not too long ago client that sold a fourplex in Seattle, and I think this really boils down to finding out if you truly want to be a landlord or not. I think that's what it is.
That's the big question.
Yeah, that is the question needs to be answered. For a lot of us, as we get older, I owned a fourplex for a long time. I just got tired of having to go work on the you-know-whats and the maintenance and all of that. I'd rather have a check coming in. And that's what a lot of people are deciding. They're having to debate with themselves, with their spouses. Do they want to continue with the hassles that do come along with being a real estate owner? This one example, they sold their fourplex, and they actually put money into the A word to create an income stream. But the interesting part is that the income stream created by the private pension or the annuity ended up providing for them more money now than their 4 rents did without any of the ongoing.
Actually, almost double,
hassles.
or a little more than double.
It was. They were truly surprised and thankful because they now get a check every month and they don't have to worry about any of the hassles that come along with maybe tenants that don't pay their rent or something like COVID hits and The tenants had all the rights. The property owners basically still had to make their payments. So again, we could go on and on. You have to decide whether you truly want to be a landlord or not.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to each, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality behind it. And so a lot of it is personal preference and what you'd like to see. Of course, being a landlord or a property owner, it's always the tenants and toilets, right? That's the deal. That's what you got to deal with. It happens. And it always happens at the wrong time, right? It's 2 a.m. on a Saturday or something, right? So that's the reality behind it. And so you've got to determine, does that work for you? And, a lot of times when we have folks that have big real estate or rental portfolios, they're not generally hands-on, right? So they're paying a management company, or they have a manager that kind of does multiple properties, but that cuts into your actual net profit, right? And so what it really boils down to is the net profit. How much do you end up with in your pocket after taking care of all the costs? That includes a property manager, that includes repairs, that includes insurance, all those things. And commonly we've seen that by transitioning that money into a different investment, like an annuity, as Mark mentioned, will actually produce more guaranteed income for people. It's not always the case. It's not the case for every single person. It's not the case for every single situation, but it is circumstantial. However, it's much less headache, and that might be the right move for you, right? But we also see a lot of people that are very intelligent and they've got a knack for real estate and they enjoy it and they've had great capital appreciation in their investments and they're doing quite well and they're happy to keep going on the path that they're on. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can build that into a retirement plan too. It's really just about what the right thing is for you. And the first question is always, do you want to be a landlord?
Double T's.
Yeah.
Double T's.
That's the 2 T's.
Yeah,
Tenants and toilets.
I just
Listen,
wanted to-
I was thinking about my own side hustle. Not be, I'm going to be a motivational speaker, and then I'm going to go to live in a van down by the river. That's what I'm going to end up doing.
And that's why, either one of these, when you really think about it, it boils down to income, right? We can say all we want, but at the end of the day, what does my real estate create for me in income? What does my pension create for me in the way of income? What does my 401ks or my IRAs, what is it? That end result for most of us is to turn it into income, right? So what's the best, most efficient way to do that? And that's why if you have a discussion with someone that does this type of planning, we can get that figured out and probably put you on a path that may even ease your stress a little bit and create the income that I know all of us want. Because I wish I was going to have a pension like my grandparents did. We're not. We have to create our own, right? If you don't work for the federal government or maybe the state government, right? Pensions are a thing of the past. So again, it's all about income.
Yeah, it is. And those investments that you mentioned, when you save in a 401k, that's why you're saving in a 401k, is to eventually create income. Right. And so the question becomes, once you reach that point where you need income in retirement, it comes down to what's the best, most reliable way to create steady income. And really what you're trying to do is replace a pension that you didn't have. That's why the 401k exists in the first place.
Right.
The entire introduction of a 401k was to replace the pensions that companies were getting rid of. And so if that's the case, I want everybody to think about this. If that's the case, if that's why the 401k exists, that means you have got to create income. And so the question becomes, what's the best way to do it? And there's not a silver bullet here. There's not a singular answer to that question. It really depends on what you are trying to do and how much safety and security you want in retirement. And what we find is when people are getting close to or already in retirement, generally they want their income to be as safe and secure as possible, because that's really what you're looking for when you're in the workforce, right? There's some level of guarantee. As long as you go to work and do your job, you're going to keep getting that paycheck, right? Well, now when you move into retirement, I don't want the paycheck to go away. I just don't want to have to go to work to get it, right? So we got to figure out how to make that happen. And that's where that income planning piece is so important, to make sure that you don't outlive your money.
Well, and in past shows, Mark, you've really gotten all over this because it's so true. We shy away from the word annuity, but in fact, Social Security is an annuity.
Yep.
A pension is an annuity. So to create your own pension, having the conversation about a good fit with an annuity, and there's so many different types, It's a great launching point. It's a great conversation starter. And these things can happen during one of your appointments. We've got 10 of them. They're complimentary. You can call at any time during the show and grab one. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Again, it's your retirement. Jump on this. Be proactive. Grab one of those appointments. All right, next scenario. Casey, to you, and then Mark, obviously chime in. They're concerned about taxes for their heirs since most of their wealth is in a traditional IRA. They've heard that non-spouse beneficiaries now have to empty inherited IRAs within 10 years. What strategies can reduce the future tax burden for adult children inheriting these retirement accounts?
You know, this is a more and more common question that's coming up a lot. This came into effect, this new rule that inherited IRAs have to be emptied in 10 years. That came into effect with the Secure Act of 2020. So it's actually been around for a number of years now, but it's getting a lot more attention, and rightfully so, because if you think about it, based on ages, if you were to pass away at full life expectancy in your 80s or 90s, your adult children are probably in their highest earning years of their life. And so then you add in, let's say, an account that's got $500,000, and they have to get all that money out within 10 years, and they're already at the top of a tax bracket. Now they've got this big chunk of money that they have to deal with. They've got to take the income, which, you know what? It's great to have an inheritance, so we won't complain too much. But my point being that it's not the most tax efficient way. We really factor in that your inheritor, so the beneficiary, is going to lose at least 30% to taxes. So this is really a big problem, and it's probably one of, if not the most inefficient way to pass money to our beneficiaries. So there's some things that can be done. Roth conversion is part of that. It may make sense for you to pay the taxes in your lifetime because you might actually be at a lower tax bracket in retirement than your children are in their highest earning years. So that might be more tax efficient. The other thing that can be done is if we want to leave a sizable amount to our children, we really can do that most tax efficiently with life insurance, right? And that's usually a new thought for a lot of folks. I'll say this, it has to be the right type of life insurance. It has to be structured the right way. And really, it's got to be part of an overall plan. But that can be it might be the most tax efficient way to go about it. And then the other thing that can be done is you can also use life insurance to offset the taxes that are going to be had on that inherited IRA. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make the inheritance the entire life insurance. That could just be used to pay the taxes on those accounts. So with the right type of planning, this can all be part of it and make sure that you're successful and that ultimately that money that you worked hard for can still be passed efficiently to the next generation. And so we'll open up the phone lines. This is an opportunity for you to get a written financial plan, again, put together by our team of planners. We will discuss what you are trying to accomplish. First, we'll look at where you're at. We'll talk about where you'd like to be, and then figure out how to bridge the gap between those two. I'll just say this is not an agreement for us to take you as a client. It's not an agreement for you to become a client. This is an opportunity to test drive and make sure that the type of planning that we do is the right type of planning for you and that we can actually improve your situation. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call. We're here to help.
Again, we've got the 10 appointments. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. And we ask that you come in with an open mind, too, because you're going to talk about your situation. There are going to be a lot of different options to talk about. No one is the same, and no plan is the same. So get customized. Grab one of these appointments right now. You're going to walk out with a written financial plan. Here's the number, 866-668-3625. That number again, 866-668-3625. This is your opportunity. If you're sitting on a portfolio, call the number. If you are already working with somebody but you're frustrated, need a second opinion, call the number. Grab it now, 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth in the books. For Mark and Casey, I'm Morgan. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.